Just a quick question for you. So I know that you normally do off-market deals. When you take on a listing, as with any case of a listing, it's usually overpriced. Do you have a part of your day or a part of your week that you designate towards trying to get buyers for that property, or do you just kind of rely on online marketing or signage for those?
Okay, awesome question. Which, by the way, this is a great opportunity for me to stress this. If you're not taking listings, because all my trainings, everything I put out on YouTube is not to say screw listings. I want to be very clear. It is just the last resort. It is not main priority. But I'm not saying don't take listings. Okay, I'm not saying listings suck. I don't think they're as lucrative as corporate companies make them out to be. I do believe there is some value there. I don't think every single broker should only be looking through the lens of I will only list properties, right? Like, some weird corporate robot. But I do believe in listing properties. I think there is a space for it. There's an opportunity for it. And by the way, if you've generated a bunch of leads and you have not pitched the idea of listing the property for sale, I think you're also losing out on money, right? It's all of it. It's doing it all. Right. So if you have somebody where you've taken this deal, because I'm trying to explain it from start to finish here, right? If you say your prospect, you get a lead and you try to get an offer on it, okay, because you've called up a bunch of buyers in that local market. So that individual says they want $5 million for their property. You think it's probably worth $4 million. But what'll happen is you get a bunch of offers on it, 3.8, 3.7, 4 million, 4.2, I don't know, whatever. You get a bunch of offers. They decline it all. You then should pitch your listing and try to get this property listed for 4.5, right? Or at least as close as possible to the $4 million, whatever will get the property to trade. Now you've taken the listing and this listing is marketed. You got the signs up, you're marketing it. It's on CoStar, LoopNet, wherever the heck you have it, CREsync, who cares, right? You have it everywhere. Now the question is, what do you do with it? The short answer is yes, of course. You should be trying to get offers on this listing as frequently as you possibly can, because you've signed a document to say that you are a fiduciary to this individual, that you are going to do whatever it takes in order to get a buyer. So of course you should be spending time very frequently on trying to get a buyer for this property. If the property is drastically overpriced and you've put 4 or 5 offers in front of them at, let's just say the same exact example, you've listed it with them for $5 million. You got them 4 or 5 or 6 offers between 3.8 and 4.2 or something like that, right? And you constantly you've done the job, right? You got a bunch of buyers. It's more now about speaking to the seller and getting them to come to a realization on price, right? An adjustment on price than it is continuously bringing them buyers. You know what I'm saying? So it's that duality of first thing you need to do is go drive offers. Second thing you need to do, in addition, it's an and, not an or, right? You have to negotiate with the seller and get them down in price and show it through proof. Obviously, we put this in front of 70 of 70 local buyers, seasoned guys who would be buying this property, whether you listed it now or in 20 years from right now. These are the same people who would buy the deal. And we got 6 of them to give you an offer, and they all came in between 3.7 and 4.2. This is the value of the property, right? So I know you've said that you came up with 5 million, but where did you even come up with that number? No, somebody offered it to me in 2021 because interest rates were fucking 1.5%. Okay, well, that's not the reality anymore. Is this something you need to actually sell and work them through the process of negotiating the price down? Because it's more about that adjustment in their mind that'll get you closer to a deal than it is to get them more offers. Does that make sense?
Cool. Thanks, Henry.
You got it, man. Great question. Thank you for that.
Not too bad. I just had a quick question. So let's say if you had a potential buyer that seemed interested in the property, is there any specific script or anything you use to get a true offer on paper as opposed to just getting that verbal?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so and again, I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. You're speaking to a buyer, you've pitched the deal, and now it's just about putting something in writing, and they've responded to you with what specifically? What do you feel like you keep hearing?
For the most part, I get pretty decent, positive feedback. I have 2 buyers I have in mind right now on a deal, and the feedback is decent. But I'm just trying to think of best practice when it comes to getting that verbal on paper, if that makes sense.
Sure. So let's talk about this. So in the event that you're speaking to these investors and they're maybe saying look, I can probably come in with an offer of somewhere around 2 million, right? They're at least giving you a verbal. Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So what you're going to say is a couple very simplistic word tracks you could use is, would you be totally opposed to putting that in writing? Okay. Is a very good word track. Would you be totally opposed to putting that in writing? Most of the time, you're going to have people who are like, no, they're good. We can draft it up. Number two, you can also say something along the lines of, what would be the best price that you'd be open to putting in writing? What would be the best price or terms? What would be the best terms that you'd be open to the idea of putting in writing? And if they give you pushback, right, which again, these are pretty simplistic scripts, right, or word tracks. But if they're giving you pushback on the idea of putting it in writing, I want you to stop for a moment and just say, listen, just to be clear, they've received a lot of verbal, the seller specifically has received a lot of verbal offers in the past, and nobody has put anything in writing, and they just want to see it legitimately in writing. I think that we might be able to get something done here, but can I ask you why you're possibly opposed to putting this in writing? Okay. And try to dive deeper and just slow down tonality, get them to, hey, this is a serious conversation, because if you don't get it in writing, you're not getting to a deal. Which is also why I stress at the beginning is to pre-negotiate using verbal offers. And you could even say, and you could, and a lot of what you could also do is also put it in writing and say, hey, listen, okay, look, I'm going to draft the letter of intent up for you. I just need you to sign it. Is that something you can do today? You can be a little bit more direct with it. Control the conversation as much as you can, right? Like, okay, offer $2 million. Okay, great. What kind of deposit would you want? 25,000. What kind of closing time frame could you do? 60-day closing. Okay, and the due diligence, could you do it in 30 days? Yeah, I could probably make sense 30 days. Okay, so let me repeat this back. $2 million purchase price, $25,000 deposit, 30-day due diligence, 60-day close. Any contingencies? No, just obtaining financing. Okay, contingent upon obtaining financing, no problem. I'm going to put this in writing. Can you get that signed today if I send it to you today? It's not an option of putting it in writing or not. You are putting it in writing for them. I'm not waiting on them to draft the letter of intent.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Sweet. Okay, thanks.
You got it.
Do you have like a separate wholesale contract or like a signing contract that you are using once you get these people committed? Or
so tell me the situation, because I just want to be clear on this.
You're sending out a letter of intent.
Yep.
You got to go to contract.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any assignment provisions in your contract that you're assigning it to somebody else?
Yeah. So in my contract, my purchase agreement, okay, it will state that this contract is assignable, but there is no assignment contract specifically. Because what I'm doing is it's a complete PSA, purchase and sale agreement. Like, it's a complete purchase and sale agreement, okay, with a specific verbiage, just as it is assignable, okay. But
Right.
most of the time, we're double closing. Like, the only time I'm ever assigning it, most of the time, guys, I want to be very clear. Because if you assign something, residential or commercial, you assign any type of contract. The contract, the closing documents, will state your fee on the CD. On that closing document, it will read Gina, so-and-so, Henry Eisenstein, whoever, right? Or an LLC, right? And then it will put the amount of money you're making on the closing documents if you do an assignment, which, by the way, in commercial is kosher, totally kosher, right? Like, you can do that. In residential, by the way, you still can do that. It's just incredibly frowned upon. Totally can do that. I'm not saying you can't. However, I do assignments when I'm very close with the buyer and I've disclosed to them what the situation is. I've sold them many, many, many properties. They don't care. They're very aware of the situation. In really good financial situations, I can assign it, which saves me obviously a lot of money on the double closing fees. However, in the event I do not know who the heck the buyer is, okay, I cannot assign it. I don't feel comfortable assigning it.
Right.
Okay. What I would do is that I go into contract personally, and I have the full-blown intention of double closing. My buyer will then draft another PSA. It'll be two PSAs, me and the seller, and then me and the buyer. And then the buyer, right, let's just say in a situation where I have a deal contract locked up at $4 million and I'm going to flip it for $5 million, I go in contract at 4 at, let's just say, a 60-day due diligence, 60-day close with a $50,000 deposit. And then I'll get my buyer at $5 million, $100,000 deposit, 2x my deposit, right, to protect me. And then a 30-day due diligence and a 45-day close. So that they have to close before me. And they have to complete their due diligence before I'll complete my due diligence. So it's two completely separate PSAs. So it's not an assignable, it's not like an assignment contract. And you can put the language that it is assignable. However, guys, I'm going to be very clear because I feel like I get this all the freaking time, almost more than anything when it comes to wholesaling, okay? These people bring deals to me, or they're talking about a deal that they're working on, and they're like, yeah, I have this deal locked up at $2 million, and I have a buyer for $2.1 million. Okay, so you have a $100,000 spread. Good. Check. That's a good thing, right? But it's like, okay, well, they're like, oh, I want to double close. I'm like, it's going to fucking cost you 60 G's minimum to close. You might as well just take a broker commission, right? Because then you could just have a contract with the seller at 2.1 million, knowing the seller is like, okay, I'm okay with netting him 2 million. And you make $100,000 commission check and you just take a 4.5% or whatever it comes to, right? I don't know, 4.75%. I don't know what the heck the number is, but like, you know what I'm saying? So you don't always have to go from like, if you're going to wholesale it, I have a wholesale mindset even when I broker deals. Just be aware of that nuance because it will screw you up a little bit. Just real quick, Chelsea, did I answer your question? I know you had your hand raised for a moment.
No, it's just I have a buyer that is looking for properties between 10 and 30 million.
Yep.
And I don't know if that would be wasting my time cold calling prospects for that because, are there a lot of individual owners that own assets like that?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, send me a note of what they're looking for and where they're looking for it. And you can also put that in the chats. And I'm sure someone's probably got something for you already.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. What are they looking for? Shopping centers?
Yeah, 100,000 square feet.
I mean,
Vacancy of
100,000 feet for 30.
40.
I mean, for 30 million is probably doable, or 20, at least 20 to 25 to 30 million, probably.
Yeah. They prefer warmer weather, but will look all over. Demographics, 1 mile, 15,000, 3 miles, 50,000, and 5 miles, 125,000. Car counts of 15,000.
Okay. And then would they want a bunch of small tenants or they'll do one building?
A multi-tenant.
Multi-tenant. Okay.
Yeah.
Do they have a cap rate minimum that they're looking for?
No, but they want 15 to 40% vacancy.
They want major. Okay. I have a couple different ideas already of a few properties that we have off market.
All right, cool.
Gotcha. No problem. Adrian, what do you have, my friend? How can I support?
Hey, Henry, you just mentioned that in the scenario that you had someone that had $100,000 spread. A little confused. Why would it cost you 60 G's to close that deal?
Okay. So if you double close, if you were to buy a deal at $2 million, okay, let's even just say before you'd even double close, okay, let's just talk about a closing on a $2 million transaction. Between your attorney fees, your title fees, and getting the loan to buy it for $2 million and all the fees that are included, you're spending $40,000, somewhere in that range, to close. Now, obviously, it also depends on the type of loan you're getting, the whole nine. Okay. Now, if you're double closing, let's say that you don't have the $2 million. Okay. That means you have to get transactional funding in place. Transactional funding, which you can literally just go to, besttransactionalfunding.com, or there's a lot of transactional funding companies. Okay. It's a very normal thing. Basically, what they do is that they give you $2 million to close, okay, or $2 million and change because you have your closing costs. So, you are going to incur closing costs on your side. Even let's just say you don't have any of the bank fees, so it's probably going to still cost you about $20,000 to close. Plus, by the way, on your deal, 20 G's to close on your deal, okay. Plus the transactional funding, which costs you about 1.5% to 2% of the $2 million. So now you have 2% of 2 million, which is 40 grand, and you just spent 20,000, 15 to 20K to close on that deal. Now you just spent almost 60K, and you haven't even closed on the new deal yet. So it's like once you get into these higher price point deals, you can't have 100K spread, which is only 5%. You might as well just take a broker fee, right? You have no cost. You just get a broker check for the total amount. Thanks, have a nice day. When you have a small deal, listen, I mean, I've made I had a deal that I made over $100,000 on a little over a year ago. It was a very small deal though, right? And on this one specifically, I did an assignment, but the philosophy is the same. I locked it for $350 and I flipped it for $500. So when that occurs, right, or $375, $375 to $500. So what happens here though, okay, is in this event, 375 to 500 is a 125 spread. So similar to the 2 to 2-1, but the difference is, if you're going to double close on a 500 or a 375 to $500,000 deal, very small, right? The cost of closing is only maybe 4% in totality, 3% in totality, right? So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to spend, let's just say, call it 4%, 2% and 2% on either side. The 2% on the 375 is only like maybe not even $8,000. The other 2% on 500,000 is 10. That's 18,000. And you got to do the transactional funding, which would be another 2% on 375, another $8,000. So my point is, even though I only had 125 spread, same difference, right? Basically the same. I'm still going to net out about $100,000, right? Because it only costs about $25,000 to close because the price point's so low.
Yeah.
right?
And that's you being the pretty much that's you buying the property yourself.
Well, I was wholesaling. I was wholesaling.
Okay.
But yes, in
Okay.
the event you're double closing, you were technically buying it and then selling it yourself.
Gotcha. Okay. And then one last question. I mean, we quickly spoke yesterday. Most of my background is residential.
Yep.
How can I quickly build credibility as a commercial agent?
Leverage me as your partner.
Right? Gotcha.